Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very special Friday Night Rambles on the day when the legendary Tommy Cooper turns 100. Well, he would have turned 100. The legend that is Tommy Cooper's 100th birthday. We have got 4 stars of variety entertainment, some of the best and most... Well, we've got 3 amazing established variety acts, and we've got one who is going to be a megastar. He's an upcoming performer. Well, let's introduce him. Let's bring him out right away. So first of all, we have got a comedy juggler who's known as the Keep Happy or Keep Smiling comedian. It's Tommy J. Have I got it right? Is it Keep Happy? I keep forgetting.
Keep Smiling.
Keep Smiling. Keep Smiling. I just think of that Dionne Warwick song, Keep Smiling.
Yes.
I'll think of that. I'll think of that one. How are you, mate? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. Plodding along and looking forward to getting back to work as soon as we can.
Oh, so can I. I'm looking forward to that. Why am I buzzing? I don't know why I'm buzzing. I was buzzing in my ear. But Tommy is not alone today because he is joined by someone that Tommy knows very well. How do you know this next person? You know this next person really well.
Yeah, but I've known him since I was very young, and I've always looked up to him because he's a lot taller than me.
Yeah, thought so. It's Tommy's dad. It's Rollo. Hello, Rollo.
How are you, my friend? All right?
Not too bad. Are you in the same house?
Yes, I'm in the house. He's in the shed.
Is that a punishment? Is that a punishment? I don't know. Next guest we've got alongside Rollo and alongside Tommy J. He is a comedian. He is also a director of Pie Entertainment. He is known throughout the country, appearing on some of the best TV shows over the years. He is with us this evening. It's Paul Eastwood. He's there. Paul, hi, Paul.
Hello there. Have you got my money?
I don't know who you're talking to. I don't know you. I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody. I'm scared of the student. What do you expect?
Okay, so it's for nothing then.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, that's fine. Crack on. Didn't know I wasn't brought up to speed. It doesn't matter. It's a red nose, isn't it? Just I was going to give it.
Red nose. I keep forgetting it's red. Comic
don't
relief,
feel bad.
Isn't it?
Whatever you were paying me, I was going to donate to the needy children. But don't feel bad.
That's made me feel really bad now. Thanks, Paul.
No, I'm sorry, mate. I'm only messing around. It's lovely.
I feel guilty.
It's lovely to see
donate
you, Robert.
To the needy children.
Thanks for
donate to
having me
needy
on.
Children.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Great to see these great guys again. Wonderful.
And someone who is also a legend. We've got 5 of us today. He is a creative. He is a performer. He is a legendary showman. It's Angie Van Buren is joining us tonight. Hi, hello, Andrew.
Hey, hi. How you doing?
How are you doing? I'd love to see that you've got the Queen next to you.
Oh yeah. There's a few at the back there. I've worked with quite a few of them, funny enough, over the years.
Yes.
Let's just get a glimpse of it because you're very small there. Yeah, Queen of Hearts, that is. I don't know. Hopefully she doesn't set off with her head, but that's the main thing. Yeah. Gentlemen, how are you doing? Welcome to Friday Night Rambles. Doing good. Right, so what we're going to do, we are going to say goodbye to, well, for now, to Paul,
that was quick.
To Andrew. Well, no, you're coming back, don't worry. We'll say goodbye
it's
to
like
Paul.
A really bad episode of Celebrity Square.
The check's in the post. The easiest, quickest gig I've ever done.
Yeah,
This is the tone for tonight. Don't go anywhere. Tommy. Hello, Tommy. We're going to start with you tonight because you were the first on my list. I don't know why. It just was the first on my list. So how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Carrying on, just keeping positive and then getting ready to get back to work as soon as we can.
Well, fingers crossed that is hopefully soon. So, Tommy, you've got quite an interesting start because one of the guests tonight is your dad. So, how did you sort of get that start in showbiz?
Yeah, so my dad started off as we'll tell you lots about it, but a circus clown. He joined when he was, I think, 16. So when I was younger, I wanted to be like my dad. And then I got an obsession with clowns. I really wanted to be a clown when I was, well, I say young, I am young, but younger. Wanted to be a clown. So then my dad worked with a lady called Carol McManus. She ran Circus Mondeo, and they came to my local town, and I helped them do the pull down, which is taking down the tent. And I said, oh, next year, could I do a spot? And she said, yes. So we got all the papers in, and I was Britain's youngest clown. And I'd done a 5-minute routine, I think a slosh routine I did. And they said, right, we'll bring it back next year. And I'd done 3 years like that, just 2 weeks when they'd done the ground. And then throughout the times, I went to gigs with my dad and worked, saw people work like Duncan Novell, the Simmons brothers, all these proper pros. And great Steve Barclay and Steve Hewlett. I'm just trying to look at some of the posters that are up in here. Loads of people I've grew up around, and it was great to see, the greats work. And while I was clowning, people always said to me, you need to have a skill. Because one year, say, if a clown's booked, you need to have another act. So like everyone did in the circus, I learned to juggle. And I thought, right, I'll learn 3 balls and that'll be, enough really. Mm-hmm. But then I always loved comedy, and people start, and then my mum runs a dance school, and she took the dance school. I think I was about 12. She took the dance school with Tony Pierce Productions for a big outdoor event to the open air theatre in Scarborough. And I used to do a bit of dancing to go into the Panto to get time off school, which was great.
It's a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I wasn't the best dancer, but I could move. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd done the Pantos a lot, and then as I said, my mum took the dance school, and she said, Tommy, do you want to come for dancing? You get this many days off school. I said, well, can I take my juggling act? She said, well, it's got nothing to do with dancing, Tommy. Anyway, she called Tony up and said, look, do you want a juggling act? And he said, yeah, get it in. So I done the juggling act at the open air. I think I was about 13, I think, or 12. And then from then, Tony Pierce offered me Panto, which was Cinderella. And I think it was 13, I done my first pro Panto, which I was the juggling act in it, which I done, I think it was about 3 minutes altogether. And then during the summer, after the Panto, I think I was 14, he booked me for the Grumbleweed show, which was at the Spa Theatre, which was a massive gig for me. Some people, they're great comedians, the Grumbleweeds, and it used to be Graham and Robin, and now it's James and Robin, and they're phenomenal. The pair of them, they're absolutely great. And Robin always said to me, have you ever tried comedy? I said, well, I do clowning, but it's sort of like 2 separate things. He said, well, I think you should do some comedy juggling. He said, I'll come in tomorrow and I'll help you write some bits. And it went just flying. James brought in props. Robin was writing out all different things. And then since then, it's nice to mix the two together, the clowning and the juggling. And then I've done, different, theatres and circuses and everything since.
Because you say these names, I mean, these names are like legends. Like the Grumbleweeds, obviously, they played the last big Panto season we had a couple of years ago. They were at Southampton, one of the biggest theatres in the country. These are legends of variety that are like sort of influencing your career. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it was amazing. I've worked with, recently, just after the first lockdown, I worked with Billy Pearce, and to see him work in the wing, it was just phenomenal. And Jimmy Cricket, and the best one to see pros, Steve Hewlett done a event to raise money for the statue for Keith Harris. It was at Viva Blackpool, and just thinking about it now off the top of my head, the Crankies were there. Legends. I think it was the last performance I've ever done, actually.
Wow.
Tom Binns was there, Jimmy Cricket, the Grumbleweeds, Steve Royal, who else? Christopher Biggins, Jimmy Cricket, I probably said that. There was loads, I probably missed out loads of people, but it was a night of pure pros. And I always like to look at, old school comedians, because you can, and working like Duncan Novell is one of my favourite ever comedians who, is about, he's just, some people are just funny. Like Tommy Cooper, Special Day Today. Yeah. He was, I don't know if you've watched it. It's called, is it called The Last Laugh, I think? It's I know. I think it's Damien Williams does the.
Yes,
Tommy
Damien. It was through Paul Hendy, I believe it was.
Yes,
did it?
yes, that's phenomenal, that film. And when they said to him in the movie, if anyone's watching, you should definitely watch the film. And they said, "What are you opening with tonight?" And he said, "Well, I'll start off. I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tommy Cooper." I'll say hello, and he had, does his big routine. He can't get out, and he said, "Well, it fills 5 minutes." But no, some people are just funny. Like Robin was funny. That these people are just funny people.
Yeah, absolute legends. And I think to be surrounded by them, I think that puts you in some sort of like in awe. Like if it was me, I would be in awe. So in terms of like getting your own style, what sort of things did you sort of, as you were sort of developing the stuff with the Grumbleweeds or with whoever you were working with, what sort of things were you sort of going like, or like were your other influences as well?
Oh, well, I've had loads of people who just helped me. Recently I've been working on my act because I started just before the lockdown doing the 45 minutes around the holiday parks and all different things. And I didn't realise, well, I did, but I didn't think about it. I had, I think I had 4 unicycles. I had 2 big trunks, and it was a big 45 set, but some of the ceilings were very low. Mm-hmm. So I've had to work that out. But people are so willing to help in this business. If you ask them, like Duncan Novell has been helping me. Steve Barclay, a great comedian, has been helping me so much. I've just recently been learning which side is that. The ukulele during the lockdown. And Steve Barclay's been helping me so much with that. And my dad obviously helps me write all my stuff. But influences, Duncan Novell was a big influence to me. I think the best sort of comedy for me, I think, is family comedy. That everyone, it's a clean show sort of thing.
Yeah,
but as well, a very old comedian back in the old days done the Comedians with Ken Goodwin.
Yeah,
phenomenal, and again, he was just funny. Funny man.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, and I think all the names that you've mentioned, a big difference between our generation and, may say, your dad's generation, or like Paul's generation, the sort of variety field in terms of like the gig economy, the venues, and also the opportunities. It's very different now. It's very like the biggest platform we've got for variety is Britain's Got Talent. So how have you found that compared to sort of like other people, like maybe say your dad, sort of like when you heard his stories? How have you found like sort of trying to get that experience?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think the experience is still there, but in different ways. Like my dad's done loads of things, and Andrew and Paul, they've done the work, and I think if you work hard, you're good at, you get the work. And but I've worked with loads of the old pros and stuff, and I think to get. Sorry, Rob, I'm going off on. What was your question again?
No, it was just like sort of like in terms of obviously compared to your dad's sort of generation, like in terms of getting that experience, how have you found it doing it sort of like a very different way to what maybe your dad has done it?
Got you. Yeah. Well, I think especially routine-wise, comedy-wise, back then, if a gag would say, "Oh, I looked in the newspaper," you'd say, "Well, I looked on my phone."
Yeah.
It was like that changing. I think variety is very much alive, but the word variety is not liked as much.
Which I think is a shame, because I think people like, and I think I'm going to bring your dad in a minute and talk about it, because I think variety is it's changed. It's like people like variety, but people don't. People like familiarity, but variety means, oh, we like that person, but can they do this? I just find it really weird. So again, it's going back to your point of you've got to have so many different strings to your bow. Speaking of strings to your bow, someone has said, Mr. Kev Hawkins gone, oh my goodness, it's the Rollinson dynasty. It's
good old
like
Kev.
The Hall of Fame. Love Kev. Evening, Kev. I hope you're well. So, the lovely Rollinson family. So, what was it like then, Rollo, sort of introducing young Tommy into the showbiz world?
Well, it was a natural progression. I mean, I didn't push him into the business at all. I was hoping he wouldn't go into it, but the same as my daughter as well. She's in the business, It's just something they grew up with, When Tommy was very little, I was in summer season with Duncan Novell at Princess Theatre, and Steve Cavara, Stevie Pink, and the girl singer and myself. We were doing summer season, you see, and Tommy was only little. And they never sold the upstairs very often, it was a matinee show. So Tommy was tired, so he used to have a little sleep upstairs in the theatre in the balcony, and he used to wake up around the same time, and he used to wake up when Duncan was doing his old MacDonald routine, you know, and he mentioned it not long ago. He said, "I remember when I was a baby, I could hear Duncan of Ellsworth," and it's just a name. These names are in your life, you know. I mean, my daughter was at school, first school, and she had a really lovely old school teacher that, you know, used to bring books from home, and she used to play the guitar, and all used to sit on the mat and have a little sing song, and they could choose what song they wanted to sing, you know, Wheels on the Bus, things like that. And they said to Lucy one day, "What would you like to? You can pick a song today, Lucy. What would you like to sing?" She said, "Can we sing Freight Train by Chas McDevitt?" Who, of course, that was someone that she knew when she was young, because Chas was did a skiffle act, and it was kicking out of the water rats at the time. And it's just a natural thing. It seems odd, you know, to normal children, you know, I suppose, but I think it's a natural progression. I didn't push him into the business, but he has got a love for it, you know, and both of my kids gone into the business. You've got to make the best of it, haven't you? You know, there's no such thing as as a secure job anymore. People used to say, "Oh, go into banking." Well, that's all online now. But entertainment, although it can't wholly go online, so it's got to be done by real people, you know.
And speaking of real people, Mr. David Burton's joining us this evening. David, like father, like son, keeping the traditions alive. Love them both. Absolute legend, Mr. David Burton.
He's a legend, isn't he, David?
Yeah. Speaking of legends, the legendary Tommy J, we're going to say goodbye to you for just a moment. You will come back. We're going to speak to your dad individually. So, Mr. Rollo, what I want to know from you is, we hear how young Tommy got into the business. How did you get into the business?
Well, actually, not far off, really. I was a very, when I was a kid at school, I used to hang around very much like Tommy did. I wanted to be a clown. And I used to hang around with Fossett's, a circus horse at Fossett's, when I was a kid, and people like that. And I learned a lot as a child off of these clowns that are not about them, a real traditional knockabout clowns, people like Jimmy Scott and Frankie Paulo. And as the minute I turned 16 and I left school, I joined the circus, and I toured with the circus until I was 19, and had a wonderful time. That's how I started. I did a few seasons on the circus, and then I left and worked as a children's entertainer on a holiday camp on the Isle of Wight. I'm not name dropping, and then it sort of all went from there, but doing kids acts, and then compare, Ents manager, and such, and comic, and bit of everything, you know. That's how I started in the circus.
And then how did that sort of progress? Because now you do all sorts of amazing different things, whether it be, like, you know, as in the holiday parks, different outdoor theatres, Pantos. Like, you are a legend of Panto. Like, you appear of so many different Pantos. So how did that sort of, going from the idea of like emceeing, that sort of starting, going all the way up to where you are sort of now?
I mean, Panto really is not a cough and a spit really from a circus clown, because the gags are all traditional, the clown gags, like the ghost gag, and you know, all these sort of things have been done in circus. So it's clowning is basically pantomime, you know. So that's a natural progression. But I sort of just wanted to try lots of things, you know, and if you've got different things you can do, probably you'll work more. But you know, I've never worked outside of entertainment in my life, you know, since I was 16. So a lot of people want to know how to become famous, how to become successful. And I believe to be successful means that you can work continuously in the business. Whether your name's up in lights or not, it makes no difference. I've had my name up in college before, which I'm very proud of.
But it's an interesting point you make, and it's a debate that I sort of get into very regularly with people.
Yeah.
It's that difference between being successful or being well known, and that fame craze that I think myself and Tommy, I don't think there was much age difference between us. Our generation somehow has the sort of the craze for that side, that fame side, that instant fame. Whereas the stars that really make it are the ones that are sort of more, I guess, strive to be successful at what they do.
Yeah, and I think also if gone through ranks. You've done work in men's. Like I've done work in men's. I used to work as a comic called I used to be called Regimental, and I used to do a lot of work in men's clubs. I did had a contract with Charles Wells Brewery, and I used to do the work in men's clubs from Northamptonshire and all that. Oh, they were hard. And I'm looking back, I think to myself, why did I do that? And army barracks I used to do, and you're thinking they were hard. Some of them were quite nice, not many. But you're thinking, what? But it gives you, if you work your way through it, I think you become sort of not obsessed, but it becomes your life, and all you do is talk to other people in the business. Plumbers, I don't think do it. I don't think they talk about. They don't say, "Oh, I worked at that house. I put a stopcock on there." It's what we do, and it's a love for the business, and also I love the history of it. I love talking to old pros, and I'm so lucky in the water. I'm a member of the Water Act, and there's so many legends that I can just sit and listen to. Not necessarily famous people, but people. If you ever speak, you'll know Win Calvin, the Panto game. Win, he rings me up sometimes, and my God, you can just listen to him and his stories forever. People. Andrew, when you chat to Andrew a minute, you won't even know a fraction of what he does. He's not a famous name. I don't mean that in a bad way, Andrew, but what he's done is amazing. And people like in the business when I go to pantomime, people like Michael Black, the agent, or I King Rat at the minute, Dougie Brown, the comic, or Bobby Roberts, and you think the things they've done, you never ever stop learning about the business, and you never stop learning about people in the business. It's a lovely business, really. It's lovely. As long as you can just keep working.
And speaking of a lovely business, behind you, you've got a poster of Cinderella. Though was that the last Cinderella you did?
The pink one.
The pink one.
Yeah, that was. Well, I did Cinderella after that. I've done Cinderella at Boston after that for Tony Pierce. That was one I did. That was at Rotherham with Maureen Nolan. That one. That was the year after I worked with your friend Hazel. I worked with Hazel.
Oh, brilliant.
That was Hazel. I worked with her in 2014 at Middleton.
Wow.
We did. That was my first year. I did work for Showman Productions, and Sarah and Sean were in it. Sean Smith, from
yes, he did. What was it? He did Portsmouth. He did the South Sea Panto. One of the ones that actually managed to get up this last year.
Yeah.
So, going into Panto, I've got two questions to do with Panto before I bring Andrew on. Sort of like, how do you take your act, your clowning, and your sort of skills? How do you bring that into your act as a pantomime performer? And talk about some of the stuff that, like the names that you've worked with. Because again, Maureen Nolan, I've met Maureen at a press day for another Panto when I was doing some interviewing there. And she's just amazing. She is incredible at what she does. So you must have worked with some pretty big names in your time.
Well, I must admit, I think one of the best moments in Panto for me was twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, singing "I'm in the Mood for Dancing" on stage with Maureen Nolan.
You can't get any better, can you?
One day I just thought to myself, what am I? This is weird. This is bizarre. She was a legend to it and an absolute consummate professional. She turned up, not late, I shouldn't say, she turned up a few days after other people because she was working in a tour. It might have been menopause or something like that. Was it Blood Brothers or something like that? Might have been Blood Brothers, yeah. She did she's always worked. She's always worked. A wonderful lady, wonderful. And she turned up a few days after. The script was in here. She did what she did and was brilliant. Absolutely. I love working with her. And Dora Bryan was another one that I worked with that was absolutely a legend. And a lot. But I did. Where did I do with her? Seven Oaks at the Stag Theatre long time ago. And I stayed down there, obviously in digs, and she was in digs. But a lot of the other cast were, so it's London house, so you used to get the train home, So it was only a couple of us there. So I used to meet Dora every day for a coffee in Cafe Nero near the backstage door. She was always a little bit late, so I ended up paying for the coffees every day. But she was such a funny woman in life, And I remember one day, because everyone knew who she was. but people were just, drinking their coffees and pretending that it wasn't her, And that she's got a terrible memory. And she said to me once, "Oh, love, just been to Holland and Barrett. I bought these tablets because I keep forgetting things. And these tablets, I got them from Holland and Barrett." And she said, "Oh, what they're called?" She said, "I'll have a look now." She opened a handbag and she said, "I've got a terrible memory. And this should help me. I keep forgetting." I've forgotten them. I've left them on the counter. And you would think it was a gag and it's a tagline, but it actually was the truth, Yeah. And she turned up to the wrong address for her digs, right? She knocked on the door. She knocked on the door, and they said, "Hello." She went, "Hello, love, I'm Dora." They said, "Yes, we know. And I'm in the pantomime. Oh, I'm soaking wet. Can I get in?" And yes, they invited her, got a cup of tea, and she was chatting. And I swear this is true. Anyway, she said, "Anyway, but I don't mean to be rude. Could you show me my room, love?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "I'm stopping." She said, "No, you're not stopping here." "Oh, am I not?" "No." And I can't remember the names. For example, Park Lane and Park Crescent. She got it mixed up. She went, "Oh, I thought." She said, "No, it's completely wrong end of Sevenoaks." "Well, there's a sign on the door that told me to knock." I said, "You must have known I was coming." It said, "No, it doesn't. It says, Dora, bell not working." And I said, "No, that says doorbell not working." So they had to phone Terry Shaw, the theatre manager. He had to come and pick her up and take her to the right. She was such a talent, I mean, she wasn't young when I worked with her. She was quite old, but she sang a song, "If there's the wrong way to do it, if there's a wrong way to do it, nobody does it like." Bang! She went down in the splits. She must have been in her 70s when I worked there. She is God bless. What a pro, I'm very lucky to work with people, such lovely people. People like Norman Collier. I did a summer with Norman. Wow, the man had just timing was impeccable. It was superb. And people loved him. Does the same stuff every day, every show, exactly the same. The chicken and and legend. I'm so lucky, really, so lucky to work with these people.
And another person that you've worked with, and we've had this discussion before you came on, is the lovely Angie Van Buren.
Hey.
See what I did there? That was a clever line. That was
a great line. I think you should get rid of me and we'll just keep listening to Rollo.
No, you've had enough of that now.
We're going to listen to Rollo in a little bit, because no doubt he's got more stories like that. I hope he's got more like that. And Rollo, we're going to put you in the waiting room if you just bear with us while I speak to the fantastic showman Angie Van Buren. So, Andrew, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot from people that I work with on the show and from Rollo and people like that is...
I only believe the good bits.
Well, no, they're all good, don't worry. But you come from a line of showbiz, sort of, I guess, royalty in the way, because your family, again, a bit like the Rollinsons, are embedded into showbiz. So how did you get your start in showbiz?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it kind of started with my dad. My father, we've got uncles and aunties that were in show business, but my father's parents weren't. And he was born in the 1930s, 1932. When he was about 4 years old, he was sent along just before the war. It was that early part of the war years, to get the meat from the butcher's shop with the little note and the coins in it. And he went home to his mum and said, "Mum, the butcher's selling elephant meat." She's like, "What?" So, yeah. In the window is a picture of the pig, the cow, the lamb, and the elephant. It was like, "No, that's a poster for a circus." And so my dad was taken along to see the circus, and he fell in love with it. And it kind of carried on from there. He suddenly found out that there was a circus organisation, the Gandhi show, were based just down the road from where my dad lived. And as a small boy, he used to cycle along the old paths and all that during the war years and go and listen to the old showman telling the stories during the 1930s, 1940s. And then so my dad, he started with the trapeze, he did clowning, he had a dog and monkey act, he did some magic, then met my mother, and they say it was love at first sight, but I think he actually realised she was the right size to fit in the boxes, And they kind of just concentrated on the magic then. They kept working along with that. And eventually I came along, and it was a point in time in in show business where there was a lot of cabaret work, the banqueting scene, because my mum and dad had moved from circus into theatre, doing the theatre tours, and then into the banqueting work. And they had a phone call saying, well, a telegram saying, could you go to a meeting? We've got an important impresario that wants to meet you. And they didn't know who it was. They went along there, and there was sat Tom Arnold, who put on all the big ice shows, and sitting next to him was Walt Disney. So it was kind of, this was a massive turning point for my mum and dad. They worked for Disney for 2 years. And then, as I say, I was born, and my first time on stage was 7 weeks old. They took me on stage as a baby in the Great Room Grosvenor House in Park Lane, London, which was one of their resident places. So my childhood then kind of ran a little bit like you've heard from Tommy, really, just growing up in show business environment. I mean, I just got fond memories of thinking back to when my mum and dad worked down at Elstree Studios. And you've got, you know, they've got the Muppet Studios there where they were filming the Muppet Show, they were filming Sapphire and Steel, Star Wars trilogy. And as a small lad, you know, just having the free run of all these studios was amazing. And, you know, people like Diana Ross working there and Doug Enning. And so, yeah, that was the early part of it. And then we toured with, well, we did 2 summer seasons with Windsor Davies and Don Estelle, which used to be in a show, It Ain't Half Hot Mum. And they were sellout successes. And Windsor used to say to me, you've got it made. You'll take over from your mum and dad and be a magician. And this kind of resonated with me. I thought, no, I'm going to do my own thing. And so when I was 10, I teamed up with a Hungarian circus artist who taught me trick cycling. Then I started learning the juggling, the plate spinning that I've become well known for, and started working on my own. I came out of my mum and dad's show, employed an assistant when I was 12 because I wasn't old enough to drive to the gigs. So she used to drive me there and assist me in the act. And I was working all the raves and nightclubs that I wasn't old enough to go into, really. And that was the start for me, just doing the working men's clubs, the raves, the nightclubs. And I mean, the horror stories around some of them is amazing. But the big turning point then was I got asked to represent Great Britain at World Expo in Seville for Prince Charles and Princess Diana. And that just opened up the theatre work then. And it was great. I started touring with the likes of Danny LaRue, who, you know, it was a 9.5-week tour that ended up 3 years. John Inman, Hinge and Brackett, Paul O'Grady, Roy Rowland, who was originally the old Mother Riley understudy. And it was funny because it was all fellas in frocks, but they were great tours. They were really good. And it's kind of gone on from there. You know, people wanted a second spot, so I started doing the magic and involving it with that. And then it's evolved, really.
You make a really interesting point, though, and it's one of the things that I'm sort of really interested about is the fact that you decided to basically have your own destiny and not sort of follow your path, whereas I think it highlights the point that regardless of what you're in, you can control your own destiny.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know, I see a lot of performers now who, you know, it's very easy to just, particularly in the social media YouTube generation, it's easy just to watch something and just copy it. And I think that's just so lazy. You know, I mean, I inherited a lot of my parents' illusions, but I still did them my own way. And I mean, it's great because you've got Tommy and Rollo on, which, you know, Tommy is evolving things that he's learned from his dad. He's putting his own things in there. He's developing it further. And I just think that's so important to do that and be creative, which, you know, I'm always trying to look ahead. And if there's something that people consider not to be cool at the time, I'll go, you know, I'm going to do that and make it cool. And just challenge yourself all the time.
So in terms of like the theatre work and stuff, and obviously I'm guessing that lends into Panto because you've been on the Panto podcast, and obviously Hayden is a fantastic friend of ours here at Friday Night Rambles. So again, adapting your act to that scenario, what was that like when you first sort of went about doing that?
Well, that was quite daunting. I mean, my first Panto on my own, separate to my mum and dad, working in their act, I was about 12. It was Goldilocks. And it was just go in and do the act as part of the circus scene, and that was it. And then a few years later, Dougie Chapman started to give me work, and that's where I started to play parts more and get involved in the storyline and playing characters and helping to feed with the gags. And it really developed from there. But I always like making what I'm doing relevant to the storyline. So it's like with Cinderella, I would do the plate spinning in there, but it's in the ballroom sequence. So it's like part of, they've just had the buffet and here's all the plates. It's like if I've been in Aladdin or anything of the magical side, I'll always weave the things in. I mean, we did one for Ian Liston years ago, and a great friend of ours, Roy Hood, had written the script, and he sent it to me saying, look, next year we want to book you, but have a look at the script for this year, see what you think would fit where, and then let us know, and we'll cherry pick out of it. So I went through, and the marketplace of Old Peking, I could do some juggling there, and Jimmy Cricket was in it. We can make him appear there with a magic effect, and then I'm playing the genie, so I can do this magic, all the way through to even suggesting something for the finale where everyone walks down and producing things for all of the performers as they came down. And Ian Liston and Roy got back to me and said, yes. I said, what do you mean, yes? Which ones do you want? They said, all of it. So I'd kind of talked myself into a mammoth job of appearing throughout as all these different characters, the show. But the amount of illusions we put in that, it was amazing. And it kind of developed from there. I mean, you talk about the theatres and the way variety is faded. It's kind of not faded. It's still out there. It's just moved. I mean, we did 15 years on the cruise ships on and off. And then we moved a lot into the Middle East, working Qatar, Sharjah, Dubai. And again, that was always with a themed show. So we would write a show around what we were doing and then put the illusions in, the costuming. And we did this in Blackpool Tower Circus in 2007. And that was Magic Around the World. So it was all sequences of magic where the costuming, the music, the performance, it was all themed to a different country throughout the show. So I love doing that. And I think it's important to do that to keep ahead of the game.
Speaking of keeping ahead of the game, let's bring Paul on. And you guys have never met before.
No.
There.
It's amazing. It's a small world. We tour, we work, and you meet so many people so many times. And then there's just the occasional person that your paths just never cross. You just never actually bump into each other. So
I've just been listening to what Andrew said and Tommy and Rollo. It's just been sort of fascinating. You start to reconsider your status in the business, listening to all these stories. It's just incredible. It is, it's nostalgic, and it's also the way people have created. And as Andrew and I think Rollo said as well, it's not the instant fame generation now, whether it be Britain's Got Talent or Love Island. You think, they think I'll go on that and I'll be famous. It's people who've created a path for themselves and made a career. And as Rollo said, working is the ultimate reward, isn't it?
Yeah.
For it, if you're working all the time. How are you, Robert? Anyway, good.
I'm all right, thank you, Paul. Now, Paul, can I ask you a question? Do you juggle?
What, women?
Well, so we've got a juggling theme running throughout the whole show. But
no, I don't juggle women anymore.
I was just double checking because then obviously we've got 4 jugglers.
I've tried.
We'll try and count.
What do you want me to do?
No, I don't want you to do anything. Don't worry. But I want to know from you, how did you get started in this weird and wonderful show business?
So, back in the day, I don't have any of the family credentials. It was completely. I was doing a lot of jobs, really strange, normal jobs after leaving school at a very early age. I left school with a uniform. Left school, and my dad said you need to get a job, and I saw an advert in the first job ad was demonstrating magic for a company called Marvin's Magic in a department store, and then that was all I had connection to show business. Then Haven Holidays. Can I say Haven Holidays? I've said Haven Holidays. Say whatever you want. I'm not endorsed
by anything, so okay.
And then as a Haven mate working on a holiday centre. That was the gig, and it was a start in summer season, and as a Haven mate, but as a member of the team, you know, doing all the stuff, bingo and all the knobbly knees and all that stuff. And I used to watch the comedians and think that's a great job. That is a good job. Turning up, you know, I've been here for 40 hours this week, and they turn up and do 45 minutes, and then just watch them. And it was a thing, you know. It was great to study how they work and how they control the room, because they're not easy rooms, Robert. As you know, these are not theatres; these are holiday centres. Like Rollo was talking about, the working men's pubs. They're not easy gigs. They're not made for entertainment. They're made for socialising and conversation. So when someone comes on, you've got to crowd control first. And that's how I started. I just, after that season, I just said, oh, I'm going to be a comedian, and failed.
Well, I think one of the things that you make a point about, I liken holiday park social clubs. They're very much like Panto audiences and the school's performances, because as soon as kids don't like something, they're gonna tell you. And the same with holiday parks. Yeah. If punters don't like what you're doing, they're gonna let you know pretty quickly. So I'm guessing you're learning adaptability. You're learning so much about showmanship in those gigs that's gonna help you. So in terms of going from that sort of work onto what you do now, I mean, I look at your CV here. I mean, some of the stuff that you've done, Paul, is pretty incredible. I mean, appearing on stuff like Des O'Connor. I mean, there isn't shows like Des O'Connor that give comedians, that give variety performers that stance anymore. And Des O'Connor did that so well.
Yeah, he was a very good, because what he would ask you to do was just give him a couple of. He'd say, "What questions do you want me to ask you?" And then that would trigger a routine. You know, and it's just such a lovely way that he did it. You know, and the first break that ITV was the pot of gold, which probably all your guests have been on that, the TV talent show, which was before all this Britain's Got Talent stuff. You know, and there was pot of gold, and then before that, obviously, as you know, Opportunity Knocks, New Faces, which is where you find people like Joe Pasquale and Jim Davison coming from, you know. Yeah. So these talent shows have got a lot to look up to, but I think now with the way it's organised now, because the TV setup, you know, if you take a show like You've Been Framed, I don't want to go on about this too much because I've got stuff to plug. If you go on about You've Been Framed, You've Been Framed is a TV show about people falling over and failing, isn't it? So, yeah. And I think TV talent shows, they're not just filming the real talent. They're looking at people that might be embarrassing or might have convinced themselves that they can sing, might convince themselves they're funny. And it's being filmed to catch all angles of that. And it's caught a lot of very good entertainers out, because they go on there going, you know, like I probably will, 50, you know, I'm not 50, by the way, I'm 28, but, you know, I'm approaching the age where I could go on there and I've got nothing to lose. And it's all about what mood Simon Cowell's in that day, what mood they're in that day. That's how we're going to film it. A lot of people have done very well from it, but I think to have a career...
Sorry, it's one of those things that you make a good point, though. I think with shows like that, whether your opinion's good or bad on this, you can make your own minds up, like if you're watching, or whatever opinions you've got on it. But there is always a narrative behind it. There's always going to be a narrative of going, right, this is what we've got. What can we use that material? It's like whatever you're doing. It's like if you've got a collage, you've got certain materials, you manipulate what you want to use from that. It's the same when you're coming up with material. If you've got a story or something, you manipulate what you want from that. There's one thing here that I really need to ask you about before we go on to about how you started creating your own sort of work as well. Being the warm-up man for Loose Women, that must be something completely, like, zany. I mean, Loose Women is a zany program anyway.
Is it? I just think a load of middle-aged women moaning about life.
That's zany. I don't know what it is, but like to me,
if I wanted that, I would. Yeah, I just should have stayed at home. it's 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 a very, very different discipline doing a warm up for a TV show. It's really different to doing, what we do, live shows. And the reason is because you're doing what you've got to do, what they want you to do. It's about filling the time between the blooming filming. So it was an interesting experience, but I met some good people and I had some great guests. First one I did was Leanne Rhymes. How do I live with? And we had to do a complete. The studio is only tiny, so we had to do a complete strip down of the studio. The loose swimming desk had to go. They had to reset it just for Leanne Rhymes. So I had to do about 25 minutes to an audience that have been there for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. It's a the great warm-up men in this business, such as, God rest his, Ian Royce, who we lost not so long ago, I believe, and Ted Robbins, the Northern guy who's warmed up for everything from, I think, Only Fools and Horses. He's done all the stuff we all love. It's a very, very difficult, that's a different profession. It's a different job. It's a completely different discipline. It's really skillful to warm a TV audience up, but not only warm up, keep them warm for the actual film of the show, which is what they're there to see,
Yeah. I'm going away from like TV and whatever sort of stuff like you do in like performance stuff. You create your own work now. So what is that? What is Pi? Tell us a little bit about Pi.
Oh, PI Entertainment Limited. Nobody gets Pi. Pi is my initials. Paulie and Eastwood are my initials, but Pi is supposed to make a reference to sort of Rollo's type feel, custard pie. The old-fashioned entertainment putting a custard pie in. So it's supposed to be. It's very tenuous and very rubbish. But anyway, Pi Entertainment with my dear old mate Stephen, who runs a variety Facebook group called Keeping Variety Alive, which is sponsored by Kudos. Over 10,500 followers and all that stuff. And I had an idea of many years ago doing shows. We're not reinventing the wheel here, Robert, but we put comedy into venues that probably wouldn't have comedy, or they haven't ever considered having comedy. So we'll do pubs with a function room, or we'll do a golf club, and they go, "Oh, we've never had a comedy night." So I'll book, and it started with just booking a few of my mates, and I would host it, and we do a comedy night. But now we do it all over the country. We're booking a lot of people.
So then, taking traditional sort of comedy in terms of like comedy clubs are few and far between, especially now. I mean, like obviously there's nobody going anywhere, but taking comedy to places that have never really been conventional comedy places, or wherever with comedy people wouldn't necessarily go see comedy.
Yeah.
I think that's a special skill, but big. It presents so many different challenges. So what was that like? Sort of going, right, I'm going to do this now. Like, did you were you met with some sort of pressure?
Yeah. Because what I was doing, because I love all the alternative guys. If you say it's the alternative circuit, and then there's the circuit that I'm on, which is the mainstream circuit. I think the two have met in the middle now, because back in the day it was very divided with the Alexi Sales and the Ben Eltons, and then there was the Bobby Davros and the Billy Pierces. Mm-hmm. It was divided, but now it's not. Funny is funny. Funny is funny now. So I think people who haven't seen comedy, I'll put a night on where I will host it. I'd have someone like, I'd have someone mainstream who's considered mainstream on, and then I'd have a couple of the other entertainers from the London comedy circuit on also. So it's just all should meet together, because comedy is comedy. It's either funny or it's not. It doesn't matter whether you're what political persuasion you are, what you believe in emotionally, what gender you are. It doesn't make any difference. It's either funny or it's not. And a lot of comics are used to going, well, it's just a night that I wasn't funny, but I'll be funny tomorrow. You know, I still get I still pay my mortgage. So we bring the both acts together. So I'm booking the blokes I know from the holiday parks. But we also, because they only have to do it's half an hour. So the likes of me, Rollo and Andrew used to doing 45 minutes an hour. You say to someone, can you come and do, it's a nice golf club. Can you do half an hour? And then I'll bring someone else on for half an hour, someone else after an hour. I'll do half an hour. It's a 2-hour show. And I give it to them at a price that is affordable, but also the ticket prices they'll see 4 acts for a tenner.
And it's one of those things. I think you make an interesting point. I'm going to bring everyone back on for this, and you make a really sort of interesting point in the sense that funny is funny, but in terms of what we sort of sort of what we consider as funny, I still think, sort of to be a bit more of a devil's advocate to your point, Paul, I think people are very hit and miss with what they're like, and it's very clear that in this society, in a very divided society, when everyone's opinions are very sort of broadcastable now, we're starting to see people are sort of, I guess, I like to use the word trash talk, because I think people like to provoke a reaction, but whether you're funny or not, that isn't clear as much. I personally, I don't know what people think about that in general. Why don't we start with Rollo, I think, just to...
Well, oh my.
There's always been, the
just say how funny I am. Say how funny I am.
there's. I mean, Paul Eastwood is an example. I mean, he is funny. He's a funny man. Paul is a funny man. You know that. Funny is funny, of course, but there's the style. It depends. If you like the style, the storytelling style of Billy Connolly is different than the one-liners. Milton Jones, is a traditional Max Miller type comic. He's old school, but new. You know what I mean? I think you can get it. I mean, my audience really that I like to do is Warner Hotels, because that's what I fit into. But I think funny is funny. Yeah, I think Paul's right. But there's always been controversial. Even if you go back to Spike Milligan was quite off the wall and such like. But he's very mainstream. You know what I know? Funny is funny, isn't it?
Don't you think that the internet kind of broke it down a little bit?
Well, we've lost your sound a little bit, Andrew. I don't know.
Don't you think the internet has broken it down a little bit with the fact that there used to be the north-south divide, whereas now, you had like Max Miller for the south, and then you had Frank Randall for the north. Whereas with the internet, I think that's blurred with the likes of like your Peter Kays and such like.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I've been watching.
But can I just say what?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, carry on, Robert. Go on.
I've been watching a lot of Peter Kay recently over the past couple of days, and for me, there's something about that style of comedy which is very relatable. And I was going to ask a question specifically to you, Paul, actually, but to everyone, I'll open this up to everyone. Do you find writing comedy harder now, knowing that you've got the likes of YouTube where everything's plastered on it, and regardless of what you do, someone can plaster your stuff and go, right, that's, for example, Paul's set is on there, and people can go, oh, watch it, but then go see your gig and go, well, I've just seen that, and I've just paid like maybe 15 quid to go see that one. I can watch it on YouTube. But also the fact that, because going back to my point about being very divided as a nation at the moment and being very sort of opinionated driven, do you find, and again, this is a phrase I really hate, the PC brigade, do you find battling against the PC brigade really hard as well, to go, anything that you say, even if it's got a specific context, can be taken completely out of context and go, hey, that's not right. You know what I mean? Paul, how do you feel about that?
I think this is another show in itself, mate. I think I don't have any time for the P. Some of the P. Can I send? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send a message to the PC brigade. It's a. You said it's a brigade. It's probably. Is it an army? They're scared of their own shadows. They're I don't know what I read the other day that Sam, is it the pop star? The celebrities don't help that influence the young people. Sam Smith, the pop star, said he wants to be described now as gender neutral because he's just jumped on that. And it doesn't bother me because I did it all with my auntie, Stan. But the problem with it is now that they're all people don't actually know what they're annoyed about. And if comedy's got to promote some response from someone, even if it's sort of slapstick comedy and someone slips on a banana skin, someone's coming off as the victim, i.e. the person who slipped on the banana skin. So all comedy's got to have a victim, even if it's self-deprecating comedy. You're the victim, aren't you? So people should just view it as it's just comedy. It's just a joke. It doesn't mean anything. And what Rollo said,
No.
funny's funny. It is. And I said that, but added to that, it's very diverse comedy. It's the most personal thing. What some people find funny isn't. But if you're running a comedy show, hopefully they're like buses, aren't they? If you don't like that one, another one will come along in a minute. And you just that's it really.
Yeah, and I think you make really valid points there, which I think it's so frustrating. I mean, Tommy, I don't know about you, but growing up, did you find yourself watching more of like the old, what we call old school, but like what Paul, Rollo, and Angie might say are like the shows that were like prominent in their 20s, so like Only Fools and Horses, that sort of thing. Do you found yourself watching more of those or being brought up on those comedy shows rather than the stuff? Because apart from like the sitcoms like Benidorm and stuff like that, our generation, I don't think we've had many things like that apart from Little Britain.
I think, at the end of the day, like you're saying, funny is funny, but I think the internet is such in a way is such a great thing for comedy because someone like me who hasn't been able to see, I can just type and then see Cannon and Ball. I can see whatever comic I want. And all I got to do really is to get an act is type in a comic, get a notepad and pen. That's me sorted. Do you know what I mean? I just type in Paul Eastwood, notepad and pen. That's me sorted.
Mate, I'll tell you what, mate. If you do that, you'll be ringing me tomorrow asking for a job as a sound operator. Because don't do my stuff because you'll be hated by 50% of the population. Do it.
John Hutchinson makes this really good point actually about I think it was Bruce Forsyth once said something like the lines of there's no such thing as alternative comedy, it's either funny or isn't, and that's the only alternative. I think that's really good. I think again, this is me going really deep in to get this conversation, but I think the word alternative or words like that are put on as labels to go, oh, that is something different. And I think it's done more as a marketing thing. It's like in music. It's done as a marketing thing. So I'm guessing, like, Andrew, your style of act could be an alternative to Tommy's, which could be an alternative to Rollo, so on and so forth. So I'm guessing, in terms of your work, Andrew, do you find... Well, I'm guessing, like, there is very much a... it's funny, or it's good, or it isn't, sort of cutthroat scenario.
Yeah, I mean, well, the audience either like you or they don't. That's the thing. And, if you go out there and you're getting the reaction, you're getting the bookings, then you're doing something right. You can't please all the people all the time. But, if the bulk of it's working, it's working. And I think as long as you do what suits the venue and the audience you're working, and you do something that's true to yourself, then you can't do any better than that, really.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
It's like you said about the TV work. I mean, I don't tend to perform the magic on TV because of the very fact that it can be analysed, copied, and created elsewhere and performed elsewhere. So the only thing I'll do on TV is the game shows with the plate spinning. It's you've got to be careful because if you're not, you're going to end up with everyone doing exactly the same thing.
And Andrew, you were making a very interesting point because recently, I don't know how many years ago it was now, but you were on an ITV show where you taught a celebrity how to do something. Am I right in saying that was you?
Yeah.
So what was that like, teaching a celebrity how to do your style of an act?
Was that the Sherry Houston one?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So we got a link with Paul Eastwood there. You'll know Sherry. I had 5 weeks of Sherry more or less living at my place.
No, she's living with me.
And
She's skinned. She's a pain in the she's skinned.
she managed to smash 1,000 plates. Let's put it that way. But it was great. You know, we had a great time with it, and she was good fun to work with, because when the concept for that show came up, I was one of the first they spoke to, and I said, "Look, I want somebody as a star that's got an eye for comedy, but also a little bit old school. Don't pair me up with one of these reality TV celebs, because there's nothing I'll be able to do with them. You know, and it's no disrespect to anyone, but I wanted somebody that we could create something that had a comedy element to it, and a choreographed chaos. And so Sherry did a really good job of that. I mean, she was here 5, 6, 7 hours a day for 5 weeks, more or less every day of the week, you know. And I mean, it's handy that I live in the heart of the Potteries, because at least I can get the cheap plates, you know.
Yes.
I think that's lovely, and I hope.
Did she tell you, Andrew, some of her stories? The show, carry on stories that I heard from her. You know, of all the people she, you know, from the Carry On films. Her stories, you just don't, like you were saying, listening to old people stories, Rollo, when people ring you. Her stories about the Carry On stars, Sid James and the guys, Brian, you go, wow.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
There's so many kind of iconic heroes, I guess, that we've got out there. And it's just so wonderful when you come in contact with and work with somebody that's got a direct link to them, and you can hear those stories and bring them alive for you a little bit more. And I mean, obviously, a lot of the stories are repeatable, but there's a few that aren't.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Here's a sort of round off question before I give you like the final question. Do you find that we're in a position now where things that we would classify as variety are, I guess, labelled as endangered? Like, do you think we're going to lose some of these specialist skills in the future if we don't pass them on to future generations?
They're still out there. It's just they're not in the theatres.
Because I worry about, like, and I said this to Steve last week, ventriloquism is a skill that is very rarely done. I mean,
good. I'm only sorry, viewers. I'm only joking. I'm just joking. Those people get the neutral. I'm joking. I'm joking. I didn't mean it. I love them, but that's a question for Rollo, isn't it? Because he's passing on the skills that he's honed over many years to his son, and that's, you know.
When you say skills,
is it?
I think in whatever term you call it. I mean, you know, it went through a patch. If you put a French title on it, and it's like circus, if you call it cirque to this, oh, that's good. We can charge an extra 40 quid for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the way it's still the same stuff. And variety is very much alive. For example, there's more. Well, there isn't now, because before COVID, there was more circuses touring this country than ever before, and talent shows like Britain's Got Talent and all them stuff. They're very popular, and most pantos now have got a variety act in them. And if you look at, you know, ventriloquism, I think there's a little girl that won America's Got Talent was a vent act.
Yes, Darcy Lynn.
Yeah, Darcy. And a couple of years before, there was another vent act who won America's Got Talent.
Paul Zerdin.
And there was another one, wasn't there, who did Elvis and...
I wouldn't mention vents too much, because Paul gets a bit angry. You don't like him.
Yeah. Well, this is
really...
No, it's not. It's like clowns. Clowns scare people. I get really scared of vents. Just the thought of it, I won't do anything tonight. I won't even be able to watch the omnibus of whatever it because I was thinking, Vince, it's the way that they speak without moving their lips. I had an agent like that once. He used to speak without moving his lips, and it was all lies. It was just lies, and he was lying to me, I was lying to him, but I was his puppet, and it just scares me. And he used to do things. I don't like it.
That's the thing about Paul. He always sits on the fence and never really says what he thinks.
Yeah, not on my watch. We managed to get some stuff out of him today.
I don't think this show's going to make it to the anniversary, mate.
I'm probably going to get taken down, but do you know what? It's been a good run. I'm going to ask each of you this final question. It's quite a poignant one because one of the reasons why I set Friday Night Rambles up back last year was obviously we lost a complete sector. We lost live entertainment. We lost local theatre. Why do you think live entertainment and local theatre are important? Let's start with Andrew.
Well, I mean, you look back over history, and this kind of things happened before anyway. You know, I mean, 100 years ago, you got the Spanish flu, and that was followed by the Roaring Twenties. So, I think people are going to want entertainment and always will want entertainment. It's just that matter of, as everyone's already said, it's how it's packaged. Variety is a bit of a kind of scorned on word, which has been done by the likes of Simon Cowell, the same as pouring scorn on the cruise ship industry, which is some amazing acts on there making great livings and doing great work, from mainstream, alternative, or whatever you want to put it. So, yeah, I think people are always going to want live entertainment. And one of the things that I always say is when we go out there performing, we're making a good living. We're doing something that we enjoy most of the time. But then you never know who's in the audience. There could be someone with 1,001 problems, debts, illness. And if we take their mind off it just for 10 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, then, we're doing a good job at the same time. So I think it's not going to go away. It just necessarily may not always been in the theatre.
Tommy, what about you?
Yeah, I think that variety is, still alive sort of thing. But like my sister done a variety show for the All in Aid of the Lady Rattlings, and it had Steve Barclay, Andrew and Dad. I done a spot, and it had singers at loads of it, and it sold out. But I think it's just the way you do it, sort of thing. I think the word variety, they go, oh, old school variety, sort of. That's the main thing that everyone thinks. But I think that I think the internet is a good thing in a very good way. But then sometimes it's a bad thing. But I think there's good and bad things to everything.
Yeah.
But I think, like Lee Evans, people watch him all online. Everyone's putting their material out, and I think once we're back, maybe people aren't going to go abroad on holiday, so they'll go to places like Cromer, go to the summer season. These holiday destinations like Skegness, and well, if you're going to Skegness for holiday, I think you need to go to the theatre to cheer up.
Your life's in a real trauma. You've got real. You need to really. I don't know. There's a helpline, I think. Yeah. You can probably put it on the screen.
But I think, like my granddad during the lockdown, he's just all been watching comedians, and he's been watching variety shows. And I think there needs to be a big, like Britain's Got Talent, I think, is a way of showing variety. But I think if you put a variety show out on TV with, good acts every single week, I wouldn't include ventriloquism because of Paul, but, I think it would boom.
Yeah.
This is another thing.
We want to see you on there, Tommy, soon.
Well, the French had it, didn't they? I mean, they had Cabaret de Monde that ran for 30-odd years, up until, 2 years ago.
Well, London Palladium, the Tonight at the London Palladium, that got brought back. That did reasonably well. I'm gutted to cut it. They got rid of it again. But I think, obviously, we're not going to get, we say we're not going to get to the levels of Bruce Forsyth, but variety, and I guess TV, the way our TV habits have changed. But I would love to see Tonight at the Palladium back. Rollo, what about you?
Yeah. Well, I think we got a strong future ahead. During this lockdown, things have changed a lot. My Christmas Panto got cancelled, so I directed for Gary Starr, who was contacted by an American company called the Parking Lot Social, and they did a drive-in pantomime, and it was humongously popular. I went and stood in for an actor near the end because the Scottish leg of the tour got cancelled because of Sturgeon changed her mind about drive-in entertainment. Anyway, so that was the thing. I've done some green screen pantomimes, socially distant, for Gary and things like that. So there's different ways of there's different ways of working, but I think people be so desperate to get out and go to either a theatre or like Paul does, like a comedy or a cabaret. And like Tommy said, I think with the holiday park business, this is going to be good. You know, because no one's going to go. I mean, especially what's happening in Europe at the minute with the vaccines. It's a shambles. So they're going to go to seaside resorts, and there's going to be entertainment for the kids, resident entertainers, cabarets. It's going to be there, isn't it? Ready for when we're allowed to open. You know, I think it's going to be strong. It's strong. It's all there. It's ready. It's ready. We're ready for that. And I think as soon as this vaccine's rolled out properly and we're out, and you know we're down the road, I think it's a strong future.
And I genuinely hope so. Final word from Paul. Because I'm
Really?
interested to hear what you've got to say.
Don't let him do the final word.
No, I think it's my granddad always said to me, look, if you can make, you know, on a bad night, if you can make just one person laugh, you're crap.
Yeah.
But I think it's been more fascinating now, and if this what acts have got to say that you know, acts that I mean, I've grown up watching Rollo, and
we all have.
I think, I think listening to this about just the terminology is enough to put people off. Variety is alive. There is a market for it, and certainly, given what we've learned during this blooming crisis, people are going to be absolutely chomping at the bit to go out and watch stuff and socialise and, you know, be in close proximity to people and sit in a live environment, and in whatever form that is, whatever form it takes.
Even ventriloquists.
A comedy club watching a load of even ventriloquists. I've got nothing against. Stop mentioning that, Tom. Put a message on the screen, Rob. I've got nothing against ventriloquists. So I love hate mail.
I'll have a statement ready. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Steve Ewart isn't watching, is he?
Yeah.
Whatever form it takes, people will be climbing the walls, and you know, entertainment is so diverse. We've always had, whatever you say, you know, the toughest job, because they either love you or they hate you, and we just go away from we don't analyse it too much. We just hope that we're doing something that people, you know, enjoy, and we rely on the people. And at the moment, we haven't had the dead people, so we've just been left along the wayside, haven't we?
Yeah,
I totally agree.
There we are.
And I think
So there's a happy note to finish on. So let's have a bit
on
of
the
Count on Paul to cheer us up.
Well, do you know what? I think
I'm going to get the
today
gas oven on in a moment. I think.
I have had honestly,
when you're
the
smiling.
Do you know what? I've genuinely had one of the probably I've needed a laugh this week. Thank you so much to our guests.
Where would you
Rollo,
be without a laugh?
To Rollo,
Here.
Yeah, mate.
to Andrew,
Where would you be without a laugh?
to Paul, and to keep smiling, Tommy J. We are back next week. Next week we have got a Legends of Drag episode, which you are going to absolutely love. The guests will be announced during the week. I need to go lie down after this. Guys, have a lovely week, and we'll see you later. Ta-ra, everyone.
Yeah, mate. Cheers. See you, Paul.